Hello everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of Prismata. We're going to be doing a review of a few games that I played recently, rather than playing any new games today, because of some hardware problems that I experienced while recording them. And I would love to tell you guys all about those problems, and you have no choice but to listen. But first, let's load up a game so you can at least be looking at a +5 while I tell you about it. Feel free to pause if you'd like to actually look over this stuff, but it'll be on the screen for a little while anyway, if you can think while I talk. So I noticed in the last couple of episodes on the channel that there was this constant, thumping noise, which was caused by, the wire for my mouse touching the wire for my mic, so that if I ever moved the mouse much, it bumped the mic wire sometimes. And it barely touched it, but sound waves travel far, so I guess it made a noticeable noise. It wasn't a huge deal, so I didn't delete the videos or anything, but it's kind of a nuisance. So I fixed that by getting the cables re-separated. And then I recorded 2 more episodes, starting with the one in which this game occurred. And then I watched that to do quality checking, and there was this garbly interference crackling noise throughout the whole video. Not the whole time, but from start to finish there was often loud crackling that made it hard to understand my voice and very unpleasant to listen to. So I was like, well, that kind of sucks. I'll delete those videos and do what I'm doing now, which is a review of them, of the games. But then I went to troubleshoot it, and it's all right, try unplugging the mic, because OBS is a little confused. Plug it back in. Now it says this device is unrecognized. It's not a mic at all. It's a mysterious USB device with no drivers. And I had to spend a bunch of time troubleshooting that. I tried plugging it into a different USB slot just in case, and that didn't help. I tried a bunch of uninstall the drivers and let Windows find the new ones, and it's just oh, there's no drivers, you don't need any, which is true. And I tried unplugging the cable at both ends, plugging it back in. Nothing did anything. And then I tried plugging it into a third USB slot, and now that one's oh look, a new microphone. Let's install that for you. So now, of the 4 USB slots that I have on the front of my computer, 2 of them won't accept the mic, but they'll take anything else. I don't know, guys. Computers are a giant mess. So, anyway. Now I can start recording again, and it's all very lovely. But what it means is we're going to do a review of the games that I played while my mic wasn't working. Not because they're... usually I do these reviews on games, selected games that I played off camera that I thought were interesting. These I'm going over because I played them on camera, and I feel like I really deserve to have a YouTube video out of them. So they're not necessarily, the most interesting games I've ever played, but none of them are super boring. So, we're going to go over them. What do you do with all this? My first thought was well, there's not a lot of absorbers here, right? And there's also a bunch of freeze, which is going to make blue even worse. Ebb is really, really good. You'd love to get ebb. But blue is going to depend on walls / splitters for a lot of its value, and red can threaten that a lot. And I was thinking well, red also is damaged by freeze. But it's sort of if you don't get red in this set, you will just lose to red. Either, basically Tarsiers only if you go mono green, and Tarsiers plus freeze if you go blue or blue green. And so the fact that red is afraid of red in the sense that all these Tarsiers don't want to be breached, and Shiver Yeti is really good against red, yeah, sure, but not red is even worse against red. So I decided in this set we want basically a ton of red. How about the economy sizes? They're not going to be very high. Things are very, very quickly going to escalate to the point where you're attacking where you're unable to defend. And since you're going red, both players will have Tarsiers, so it'll be really important to breach, right? I'm player 1 here, and that means that a turn 2 with Vivid Drone, a turn 2 Animus is pretty cool. Like, it's playable. It's less bad than a normal turn 2 Animus, right? Where you can't build any drones. So I did that. It seems really important to get out red stuff. And my opponent quite reasonably responds with Animus, although I'm not totally convinced by this engineer, because really, I don't know. I guess, actually, you can spend all 3 energy with 1D, and then you have $5 left for a Frostbrooder. That actually seems great. I don't know why he didn't do that. He didn't do that. I don't have that option, though. I considered building these 2 Tarsiers. I eventually went with the Frostbrooder first. My kind of thinking was, like, Tarsiers that arrive early just sort of bump into Absorb for a little while. Oh, also it meant I could get another drone. Like, I don't really want to be on 9 drones. It would be nice to be on, like, a couple more. And Brooder instead of 2 Tarsiers is cheaper, so you can do that. But Tarsiers that arrive first run into Absorb. And even if your opponent's Absorb is only Rhino, like, that's still wasteful, right? Whereas Frostbrooders producing Frostbites are just as slow as Tarsier. They take just as long to do something. But you can save up the Frostbites. You don't have to... It's okay that they're not doing anything right away. And then once the Tarsiers arrive after the Brooder, you can threaten to breach your opponent's... threaten to nullify your opponent's Absorbers and go straight for the really squishy stuff in back. Plus, it was just more convenient for decon out. I think all the same arguments were true for my opponent, and I didn't realize until now that they... I was like, oh, he built this third engine and then couldn't use it, and I knew that was bad. What I didn't realize is you could have used it by building a Brooder instead of these Tarsiers. You get another drone out, which is pretty serious. So now that I have a Brooder, we basically just go for Tarsiers, and I got a Vivid Drone. This is becoming a very uncomfortable number of drones. Like, you're going to want to be able to defend with them or force field them or something. But Vivids are just so good. The extra money is really valuable that it's worth taking this kind of dangerous approach. And now the opponent gets a Frostbrooder, and you can see what I mean about these Tarsiers being sort of wasted. My opponent's doing only 2 damage for a couple turns now, and I can build a Shiver Yeti to block much of the Tarsier damage. Why Shiver Yeti instead of Rhino? Well, Frostbrooder is not actually that amazing against, like, mono red. It's okay, but spending a Frostbite to freeze a Rhino is a lot less value than freezing a wall, because the Rhino does things in addition to defend, right? Whereas a wall just defends. If you can Frostbite it, the wall is completely dead, whereas, like, at least the Rhino got some attacks off or something. Right, a red player can build defense while also attacking mono red, because you can build just like Rhinos and then attack with them if you don't need to defend with them. The blue player, assuming they just have 1 Blast Forge, can either build walls or attackers, and so Frostbite making their walls not meaningful is really valuable. But anyway, against red, it's like okay, but not great. On the other hand, the reward is quite high for breaching, so you get to Tarsiers. But Shiver Yeti is great because the defenders that red has only have 2 health, so each Shiver Yeti neutralizes an enemy defender, right? That's why I picked that instead of Rhino. And I thought about this Vivid Drone, and I decided this is just too much. I'm gonna need drones to defend with. And so I cut the Vivid NG thing and built 2 NGs, and I said, well, wait a minute, no, even better, let's build a conduit, right? I can force field, or I can build Gauss charges. And in a game where we both have a gigantic pile of freeze, Gauss Charge is amazing, right? Like, it actually kills a Tarsier. You know, paying 1 in a green to destroy an enemy Tarsier is unheard of. So it's Gauss Charges for a turn or two, and then Force Fields is what I was thinking with this. Better than just building Engineers to defend with. And the opponent builds a Shiver Yeti in response, quite reasonable. I think this wall is the worst thing you could buy. You know, another Animus would be worse, but you can't afford it. This is the worst legal option, I think, because I already have a ton of freeze, and you already have, like, enough tech, I think. You know, green would be fine because Force Fields and Gauss Charges, as I said, but blue, there's just nothing blue you want this game. And so here the Shiver Yeti actually does 1 damage, acting as a Rhino. Man, I had given this whole thing about the difference between Shiver Yetis and Rhinos, like how to compare them. But the mic was broken. So when do you buy a Shiver Yeti and when do you buy a Rhino? How do they compare? A Rhino is like, do 2 damage over a couple of turns and then produce 2 health, right? We're ignoring the prompt defense nature of them because Shiver Yeti is the same thing, so those sort of cancel out. In most cases, Shiver Yeti can be thought of as when bought, instantly deal 2 damage, but never provide defense. Now, in real life, Shiver Yetis don't tend to be quite this clear-cut, but in an idealized scenario, you can think of Shiver Yeti in that way. Because if you're clicking Shiver Yeti every turn, then the 2 health defender that your Shiver Yeti is freezing has effectively been just deleted, wiped from the game. Your opponent has to pretend it doesn't exist. And so a Shiver Yeti is like 2 damage right now, and Rhino is like 1 damage, and then 1 damage, and then 2 health. And if you ever like decide to cash in the Shiver Yeti for health, you give your opponent the 2 damage back, right? Their force field or whatever becomes unfrozen and they've suddenly gained health. So it's not like the Rhino where you can use it for a while and then get some health. So the trade-off is like, is 2 damage now, is getting the damage a little bit faster, where it's not real damage, of course, it's freeze. Is that worth not getting the health at the end? However, and so anyway, often that's true and often it's not. You have to decide. But in this game, and in some other games like it, the Shiver Yeti is actually like strictly, well, no, it's not strictly better, but it does behave better than usual. By freezing the enemy Shiver Yeti, I'm able to deny absorb, right? So not only does this Shiver Yeti sort of conceptually delete the enemy Shiver Yeti, it also deals 1 damage by denying them the 1 damage absorb. So we get to kill 1 more engineer. So I think that Shiver Yeti was amazing, and I got some more, thinking like, okay, next turn, we're breaching. Might as well throw in that Gauss Charge, because it's probably killing a Tarsier. And I, like, if I really, really wanted to, I could, instead of this Gauss Charge, build a Force Field. Right, my opponent is threatening to breach here, freezing Rhino, Yeti, killing Engie, and Tarsier. That's what I figured my opponent would do. And I was like, you know what, if they want to spend their Frostbite and click their Shiver Yeti to get that 1 damage, go ahead. It's going to be tough for them to defend. And they'll have used up this Frostbite. So I said I'll just build a Gauss Charge to make it even harder for them to do that. And a Force Field would protect me from this outcome, but I think that this is a fine outcome. Getting them to spend a Frostbite on this. And click the Shiver Yeti. Right, which means that it's basically impossible for the opponent to defend. I can freeze for 1,000,000 here, and yeah, I forgot to freeze that drone. And every Tarsier of mine kills a Tarsier of theirs, right? As does the Gauss Charge. So by accepting the breach that I offered them. It's so weird, like, when do you ever gambit a Tarsier on turn 6? But that seemed good. You know, they made the mistake of killing a Vivid. Like, Vivids are good, but this game is way too aggressive to allow your opponent to own any Tarsiers. And that's why I went straight for the enemy. Sorry, did we skip a turn? I guess we did. That's why I went straight for the Tarsiers and killed the Vivid only when I ran out of like useful things to attack. On reflection, should I have perhaps killed the Frostbite? Nah. I can't defend anyway with just the Shiver Yetis freezing me, so like, what's the point? Just let this Frostbite get no value. And build more Gauss charges to kill everything. And again I get breached. But I have enough damage to kill my opponent's entire set of attackers and all their drones. So I don't mind, right? I'll eventually win. Just like a ton of freeze and nothing else. This was a cool game, I thought. Very, very fast. Low econ freeze is like pretty crazy. All those early gambits, early breaches, just everything super, super focused on the short term. Squeezing out every dollar you can with Vivids, even though it makes you uncomfortable, stuff like that. So this was a neat game. And I commented at the end of it that I had been feeling like a bad player and was glad to win one. I was like sure that I would be losing, which like the last few sessions, I said, the last time I recorded this, I've actually been mostly winning, but I still was in like just the wrong kind of mood and felt like an awful Prismata player. And so I was happy to win something. So, moving on to my next game against Jaff Skim. This person, after we played the game, he was like, hey, let me know when this video is published so that I can see what you had to say about my play. Joke's on you, you don't even get the very mediocre live analysis I was providing. Oh, by the way, let's look at the graphs for that last game, right? Since we happen to be there. Like, very, I don't know. I guess they're not remarkable at all, are they? They're just sort of, it's a short game. And so the bars are pretty steep, relatively, but okay. Doesn't actually say anything that interesting. I thought it might. Moving on to this game against Jaff Skim, Jafshim, who knows? This one, I really wasn't sure how to approach. So feel free, if you like, pause the video, decide how you would approach this set. Okay, welcome back. So the main question for me here is Reservoir good? That's something that I am not like amazing at recognizing, and so I'm often in a Reservoir set like saying, geez, is this a set where you should buy Reservoir or is it not? Here, many of the criteria for Reservoir being good are met, but it's not clear like if they're met well enough. Like there's a way to produce lots of green. Yeah, that's nice, although not mandatory. Just a conduit or two is usually fine. There's a good way to spend green defensively, right? Which gives you a better excuse to accumulate green and defend yourself while in this case, defend yourself while the Reservoir arrives. A green sink is useful for Reservoir. Reservoir is itself a great green sink, but if you can like use the green for something while you build up to Reservoir, even better. Good soak is a very important thing for Reservoir, and clearly Aegis is that. The last criteria is like no good attackers. And that's the thing I can't quite tell, or poor attackers in general. Valk is a pretty okay attacker, right? And its tech sort of fits with Reservoir in a way. So you could very well get some Valks. And that might just be, if you get Valks and your opponent tries to go Reservoir, are you going to kill him? If so, you can't really go Reservoir, right? And, you know, Kinetic Driver is a pretty efficient attacker, it must be said. So, between this and Valk, it seemed to me that Reservoir should have some trouble, right? Maybe it's good, but it's not like a standout. So, the other thing is, like, if Valk is the attacker you're building along with your Reservoir, because, like, do you really want to build a bunch of Tarsiers? Reservoir is very, like, it makes you vulnerable, right? You're waiting a long time for, like, something to happen. You haven't gotten any payoff for this tech you spent. And so that's why you want good defense in a Reservoir game. Do you really want to be spending $8 a turn on Tarsiers while you wait for the thing that's going to actually win you the game? Not really, which means you are going to want your attacker to be like Valk, but then you're spending $12 and you're blue. And like you still have 1 red left to spend. It costs you like 16. And I don't think this set really supports 16 drones very well. Never mind that you'll probably need more because you have to defend somehow with NGs or walls or force fields or Aegises, anything. You can't just build Valk Tarsier every turn while you wait for a Reservoir. So all this led me to say, you know what, I think I'm not going to get Reservoir this game. I'm just going to get Splitters and Kinetic Drivers, and maybe a Valk. Synth is like a strong reason to go blue-green, and here, like, you know, there's really good green. I'd like a lot of it. And Splitters are fine, and I don't really have enough income to add any red to that mix, is what I was thinking, right? Like, we're going to spend $11 per turn on attackers early when we just are building Splitter or Kinetic Driver. Maybe we can get up to spending $16 or $17, maybe, by building like Splitter, Kinetic, Gauss Cannon or something like that. But we don't need red to enable us to spend, to like, we don't have so many drones that we need red to spend all the money. So that was the plan. Neither of us went 3rd NG. My opponent went green, pretty normal for player 2 here when green is so great. I skipped it, going for Synth instead. Again, pretty normal. I don't know how to play Reservoir. I wonder if it might have made sense to get Animus here instead of Blast Forge, just so you can get it down right away. You have to cut a drone, which is like pretty serious, but yeah, maybe that's not so great. I don't know, but like it's a turn earlier. That's pretty important. So I don't know. Unclear. I can't criticize that play just because I don't really know any better. The opponent picks up a Synth. Sure, that's what you want to do with your blue, your first blue here. And then the Animus. Planning Reservoir Valk, perhaps? And so my response was to just build 2 attackers, right? I decided I couldn't afford red, so here we go. I've got all the tech I need. Let's start building attackers. Importantly, this also makes it quite difficult for the opponent to get Valk because they have to give up 2 engineers to do that. And if they do, you can respond with wall attacker attacker, right? So their Valk is only killing 2 damage, and they have to immediately switch to defense mode, was the hope. So instead, they just got a wall and a Reservoir and a Tarsier. So it looks like we've sort of bullied the opponent off of ever getting Valks, adding 3 attackers here because they didn't get a Valk. I don't need defense yet. And they're suddenly having to invest quite a lot in defense every turn, spend all their blue on it, so they can't get Valk. And I think just Reservoir Tarsier should lose, so that was why I was getting all these attackers. I mean, obviously, attackers are good, but like, I have enough tech, I have enough drones, build attackers. And also, building attackers has the effect of making it very difficult for the opponent to do the thing I'm afraid of, which is Reservoir Valk. And we're well ahead in attack, but the opponent's Reservoir is like coming along nicely, I guess. And now we finally build like another defender. Oh yeah, the worst Aegis in the world. Gets exploited so badly. 5 attack, and the only thing you can do is lose Aegis, absorb nothing. No thank you. And they're attacking for 5 anyway. It's like wall is perfect, so... and I built Engies because my opponent's Reservoir is at 2, which means on their next turn, it'll be at 1, which is the turn they'll be building a bunch of force fields, and I'll want defenders then. So the Engineers now defend the Reservoir. And here, did I actually consider... Yeah, I don't know. Shouldn't I have left a splitter back? Like, we're attacking for 9. And... what exactly is the opponent's defense to 9 damage? 10 is very simple. You just take Aegis wall. You know, it's sort of unclear to me why you built this extra wall, but okay. And that doesn't lose any force fields. If we attack for 9, of course they can go Aegis wall, but in that case we've gotten a free splitter hold and done the same damage. Or they can like lose force field Aegis wall. In that way, we have saved ourselves a health. Holding back the splitter gives each of us 1 health back, right? In a way, I think. Well, it would, if he chooses to defend that way, it kills one of his attackers, which is like pretty great. So I think my opponent would not defend that way. Would instead go Aegis wall and just accept the worse absorb. So I probably should have held this splitter back. But I was starting to run out of time, and I just wasn't sure if there was some way they could exploit it, so I didn't. Also, I guess it offers them a breach if I don't build any more defense, but I'll build an Aegis or something. Anyway, and at this point, it's just a matter of defending while the opponent like force fields as much as they can. And finding ways to exploit them so they have to lose more force fields or something. I was torn about the decision, should I actually click Kinetic Driver to take out the conduit? At the beginning of the game, I had said to myself that I would not do that, because the opponent is already badly over-teched and they don't need any of these tech buildings, but if I can slow down the production of their force fields by like 1, that's a great relief to me, right? I win the long game, I just need the short game to go okay for me. But I'm not sure if spending $2 to delay an enemy force field 1 turn is actually good. Like, isn't that kind of similar to just building an engineer? I don't know. I'd be happy to build an engineer. I'm just not sure that the kinetic click is better or worse. Kind of a mystery. I went for it, but I'm not sure if I should have. I picked up a conduit here so I could continue to build Aegises. And then I think it was pretty much over. Like, I was kind of toying with this drone hold, but then I realized, like, wait, splitter holds are way better. And also, we're exploiting the enemy anyway, so it's free. And they finally get the last 2 force fields. And my attackers are dying off, right? Like, these kinetic drivers are finally... I'm finally paying my dues for having gotten $1 off a Gauss cannon, right? I'm losing the attacker. But having had that $1 for several turns is really important, and that's why kinetic driver is so good. I'm okay with losing these. I have enough damage to take out my enemy's force fields, and they don't have a way to replenish them, so it's fine. Here I offered a tiny gambit, right? I said, how is my opponent defending 7 damage? They're losing 3 force fields and absorbing for 1 on a wall. My opponent actually chooses to lose just 2 force fields and not absorb at all, so they get to breach me. I get no absorb either, but I can just rebuild my wall and go back to absorbing. That's something the opponent does not have the option of doing. I think the wall is worth much more to the opponent than it is to me. But it doesn't really matter, like, the game's over, right? might as well try that gambit, I guess. And they give up. So I had titled this video 1 plus a green attackers, right? In the last game, my Gauss charges were like important attackers central to the game. Best I've ever seen Gauss charges be, honestly. Like, if you can kill a Tarsier with a Gauss charge on turn 7, like, what is the world coming to? And then here, the Reservoir, also the other 1 gold attacker. I don't think there are any Cryo Rays in the next game, but wouldn't that be cool? Anyway, so it turned out the Reservoir didn't work out here. My opponent very quickly stopped being able to use their red, which was sort of what I had hoped would happen. Maybe a slightly better build that could somehow get out Valks would work, but I tried to make that difficult, so I hope it worked. I don't know. Okay, let's move on to... Oh, no, we were going to look at graphs. I love graphs. Were there any interesting graphs in this one? Kind of. I had substantially more economy for... Why exactly? No, that's damage, sorry. Economy. I did have more. I continued building for a little bit longer because I didn't have all this red to deal with. I guess my opponent just built a lot of tech as well. Damage-wise, I was well ahead until this like, crazy Reservoir spike. But my better economy and defense allowed me to persevere through that. Okay, well, not that interesting a graph as it turns out, but I do like looking at them. And that was the end of the first episode that I recorded during the Dark Ages, and this single game here was episode 2. But we'll just do it as part. Although honestly, like my review took as long as the games themselves. Jeez. This game, feel free to pause the video if you'd like to consider how to approach this set. Great, welcome back. So this game featured 1 blue attackers, right? Thermite Core. What an amazing unit. My thinking on this is that there is great soak, right? That is the primary dominating factor in this set. Aegis, Shredder, Chieftain, arguably Thunderhead are all good soak units. And Galvani Drone, like, is not soak, but it can sort of play kind of a similar role by rewarding you for keeping engineers around. If your opponent ever chooses to kill the Galvanis, they're excellent soak. And if you buy few enough that you can avoid being exploited and keep them working, they're sort of like free money to build engineers with. So great soak, but also Thermite Core, which is going to make... Thermite Core greatly accelerates the pace of games because you can make Absorb not matter, right? I think I've said before on this channel that one way I like to think of Thermite Core is... Suppose your opponent is absorbing for 2. Pretty normal, right? They have a wall. That's a typical thing. If you are using your set of N Thermite Cores to deny your opponent that 2 absorb, then, in a way, all of your Thermite Cores together combine into 2 Tarsiers, right? They're dealing 2 damage per turn by converting all the damage you would have done, including the 2 damage that would have been absorbed, into pixies, which you can spend later when they won't be wasted. And so how valuable that is depends on how much absorb the opponent has, right? If they're absorbing for 2, Thermite Core is fine, but like you probably don't want to build a whole ton of them. You know, spending 4 BBBB over several turns to have 2 Tarsiers is like not that great a deal. But if your opponent is absorbing for 4 because they have an energy matrix, it's probably a great deal, and you should try to get all of them. And having 4 Thermite Cores that are doing 4 damage per turn is pretty amazing. And anyway, so that it accelerates games in that way because you can use your blue tech, which is normally pretty defensive, to produce very cheap pseudo attack in a way, which punishes absorbing. So I like Thermite Core. I feel like I'm reasonably good at it, And as player 2, I know there's a good Thermite Core build where you just go like Natural Conduit into Natural Blast Forge into GG3. And that was my plan here. And then like try to get Chieftains and Shredders and Aegises someday, maybe. And I was trying to find a way to work in a Galvani drone to... I thought this is like slightly better than DDB into GG3 because the Galvani drone like will use up... It costs less than a drone, and next turn you'll have $3 left because like the Galvani pays for itself, and you'll have $3. You should have $3 for the drone, right? But no, that doesn't happen. The Galvani pays for itself, but so would the drone. So would have the drone that you're buying this turn, right? In order to get back to an economically the same situation as after building a drone, you need $4, not just $3. Because the drone, you're not getting the money the drone bought you this turn. So I realized this and say, oh, I guess I just need 2 drones. But now, like, I actually decided not to go GG1 because my opponent built these Galvanis. So I don't actually need a Thermite Core, or GG3, I mean. I don't need a Thermite Core to deny my opponent Absorb. I can just attack the Galvanis. Or Engineers if they don't defend. And it means I can buy a Galvani instead of a Thermite Core. So fine, I do that. And I saw this Shredder, and I was like, wow, are you kidding me? I'm never going to have to build Thermite Cores. I can I can spend 2 damage and not do any, like... I actually don't know if killing these Galvanis was right. Maybe I should have killed 2 Engies, which like turns off the Galvani, 1 Galvani, and leaves the Galvanis as additional like exploit material for me later. But whatever, I killed these guys. Seems okay. And I can just, as long as I build up to 4 damage next turn, I don't need a way to take out the Shredder, is what I was thinking. And then I realized, like, actually 4 damage next turn is kind of hard. Because I'll want to build a Thermite Core after that, and I also will want to have a wall, and I just don't really have enough stuff to do that while also getting up to 4 attack this turn. So I said, fine, your Shredder wins. I'll just use a Thermite Core to build up Pixies for a little while. I built another Blast Forge so I could build like Thermite Wall or... I did this with an eye to getting into Chieftains. Built all this extra tech to accumulate green and be able to build like Chieftain Wall or Chieftain Thermite, something like that. The opponent also tries to get Thermites and chooses not to attack with Shredder, which I think is definitely a mistake. I'm not giving your Shredder any value next turn anyway. You don't really care that much if I kill these 2 Engies versus getting 2 Pixies. So you should definitely do 1 damage to me, either my Galvani or my Engineer. I haven't thought too much about which. And now this Chieftain is what I use to get up to 4 damage. And build a wall to defend with. I was a little worried about, like, could my opponent perhaps deny me Chieftain value by building enough Thermite Cores? But, like, nah. That was my conclusion. Nah. They don't have the resources to build that much, that many Thermites. They have a lot of Tarsiers. The Chieftain will get some value, even if it's not, like... You know, they probably won't be attacking for 9, so it won't get full value, but it'll get some. And in the meantime, it's a quite cheap way to get 2 attack, which was what I needed. And we kill the Shredder. I tried to start a Chieftain train and realized, like, I couldn't do that while, Or... Did I realize I couldn't? I guess I kind of wanted 5 damage. Like, I know I end up dealing 5 damage next turn, but I'm trying to figure out why I didn't go with that Chieftain. Because this seems okay, doesn't it? Oh, because this Galvani is not getting value if my opponent kills the 2 NGs. Maybe I shouldn't have been so worried about that, because they don't really... Like, it costs them a lot to kill these 2 NGs. It costs them 2 damage, right? Because... Or no. Because they can't click Thermite for value anyway. Yes, right. They have already, like, 5 attacks that they have to do, and cutting it down to 3 doesn't hurt me at all. So I concluded that my opponent would be clicking their Pixies next turn and killing the NG, so the Galvani's no good. And then looked at from, like, this perspective... Oh, also, like, I need another Thermite Core, or this Chieftain looks kind of stupid. So I cut all this stuff and just rebuilt the NG instead. Yes, that makes sense. The Chevrier briefly gave me pause, because I was like, can they really get 8 freeze together for my Chieftain turn? No, that's not possible. And we're at 5 attack here, just perfect for killing out Galvani and clicking Thermites. A little bit hard to defend. The opponent's been adding a lot of attack recently. If this had been a Rhino, I'd have a much tougher time. The Chevrier just, like, doesn't do anything. I don't have anything with 2 health, so it's just freezing 1 damage, which is, like, worse than dealing 1 damage. And, now I'm up to 6 attack, right? And it didn't replace my Thermite Core, but that's fine. The plan is to hold a Chieftain, right? This is a turn that I went back to after the game and realized, like, this is a big mistake. My initial thinking was, okay, the opponent has 15 damage, and they're quite flexible in how much of that damage they actually take. So I was quite worried they would choose to attack for exactly 10, right? Losing Chieftain and Wall and getting no absorb. That's the... And so I said, okay, well, you can hold a drone in that case. The Thunderhead was just a joke. I wasn't going to build it. I said, well, in that case, I can hold back a drone in case they attack for 10, and, like, a force field in case they attack for 11. Fine, but... Like, they're not going to do that, right? How much real attack do they have that they can't help but deal? Like... Maybe 7? Honestly, less, because they can click a Thermite. It's like 5. So, to get this exploit, they have to deal 5... They have to add 5 damage somehow to kill a wall. And, like, that's actually worse than normal Prismata math, where you deal 3 damage to kill a wall, right? So, the opponent, like, damaging my wall is just not a thing I should be worried about. They have to give me a bunch more absorb to get up to this wall kill, compared to what they'd like to do, which is... hold back the Chieftain as, like, insurance against my Pixies, and likewise the Electrovore. Save up their Pixies, build some more Pixies. They have a lot of useful things to do with their units instead of attacking with them, and the value they get for attacking is very low, even if I don't hold these guys back. So I should not have held them. And then I could have, like, built another engineer or something. But okay, I did this. And I added a 3rd Thermite Core because for just 1 turn, I'm going to be at 6 damage, right? This 6. Just checking there that we can't breach. And just Aegis... Aegis to defend? Ah, no. Yeah. I replaced a Thermite Core because I plan to still be at 6 damage next turn. And I'd like to get value out of that. Meanwhile, the opponent's Chieftains are dying, right? They were built early enough that they're running out of lifespan, and I am still on fully Thermite Core economy. Sword economy, right? So they're getting no value at all, but you kind of have to hold them in case I decide to unleash the Pixies and breach your Tarsiers, right? They're just getting, like, nothing. And I held back a Splitter to give myself a little bit more defensive flexibility. And, oh, that's right, yeah! Because next turn the chieftain's going to be dying, right? I'll be holding it back. So I want 6 attack again, right? Ta-da! Because like the thermite cores are still on. Oh my gosh, it's so great. And the opponent still has a dying chieftain that I'd like to ignore. And so I emoted him and he gave up. What a stinker, right? This was it was time to start building shredders, by the way. I was actually going to build 2 shredders this turn because like the opponent has enough attack that they can't really prevent that I think I would actually get value out of 2 shredders per turn. Maybe I would have had to go back to only 1. Like, how much attack do they really have? 9. Yeah, as long as they have at least 10 damage, 2 shredders are getting value. And if they don't have 10 damage, well, I don't know. They could go down to 7, but like, don't they want to click a chieftain? You know, this Electivore would really rather attack than defend. So 2 shredders ought to get pretty reasonable value, and they're threatening to attack if he doesn't deal with them. So he has to build even more defense. So this was a cool game, and this one does have a somewhat interesting graph, right? Where I attacked for 2 once to kill some Galvanis, and then for 4 to kill a Shredder, and then 1 to kill Galvani, and that was it. All the rest of it was being saved up for 1 explosive burst. And I was slightly ahead in economy, but it didn't really super matter. Or that wasn't really exactly the driving factor, right? Good thermite core timing was what won this game. My opponent built a thermite core, but didn't really get much value out of it. They were clicking it, but like this turn, yeah, clicking it was good. On pretty much all later turns, clicking it was relatively meaningless. Here, it was slightly good because it was like, you'd rather kill an engineer and gain 2 pixies than kill a wall. So this thermite core definitely has a non-zero value, but it's a lot lower than like if you can actually deny absorb. And at this point, the opponent is mostly past the point where thermite clicks are doing anything. I guess here they get value, of course, because of my chieftain is dying anyway. But yeah, just poor thermite core management, and also I'm not super in love with red, but you could convince me, I guess. Green blue just seems better here. Did I go? I went green blue in this game also, but I guess in this one it was just mono red. That's me, right? Either full offense or full defense? Well, no, not really, but it just so happened these 3 games. Okay, well, we're done reviewing these. I hope that this retrospective is as interesting as the episodes that I tried to record, but failed. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.